Hey everybody, this is Anthony from VR Game Rankings, and welcome to another episode of our daily vlog series. It is Wednesday, November 29th, and this is episode 42. And I have a handful of news stories today, not a ton actually, but I do have some game discussions to get into as well, so we'll just see how it all plays out. Okay, so the very first story that I have today is in relation to Doom VFR. Now, as you know, Doom VFR is coming this Friday. It releases on December 1st. Now, we've had a number of stories about Doom VFR on the PlayStation VR side of things. The game has been showing up around the United States and various retailers. People have been buying this game. There's probably hundreds of people in the United States, regular everyday consumers, that have gotten their hands on Doom VFR. People are streaming Doom VFR. It is out there. But that's the PlayStation VR version. What about HTC Vive players? What about Oculus Rift players? We have to wait until Friday, and so we're very excited about that, obviously. Now, of course, Oculus Rift players, we also have to wonder, is the game going to work right away? We don't know for sure. We don't know with absolute certainty that we're going to be playing Doom VFR on Friday without any issues whatsoever. There could be some minor issues. The good news is somebody will probably figure out a solution to whatever problems may pop up relatively quickly. So I would imagine that even if we're not able to play Doom VFR immediately on Friday, I'm talking about Oculus Rift players, maybe within a day or two, everything will be worked out and we'll be able to play it. You have to hope that that is the case, and we're going to find out on Friday. And obviously, it's good news as well from the standpoint that whatever happens with Doom VFR, the same situation is probably going to happen with Fallout 4 on December 12th. So it'll kind of give us a preview for that as far as the Oculus Rift players out there. Okay, so the news, why is Doom VFR in the news today? We've covered all of this before. Doom is in the news today because the minimum and recommended specs for PSVR players has been revealed. And normally this is not news, but it's news in this case because the specs are a little bit higher than what we're used to. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so the minimum specs is an Intel Core i5-4590 or AMD FX 8350 or better. You need to have 8 gigs of RAM. You're going to need a GeForce GTX 1070 or an AMD Radeon RX 480 or better. And you're also going to need 17 gigs of available storage space. Okay, so that's the bare minimum. Now, the recommended is that you have an Intel Core i7-6700K or an AMD Ryzen 5 1600X. You're going to need double the memory, 16 megabits, if you want to get up to the recommendations. Sorry about that, my water bottle just popped there. And let's see, on the graphics card, you're going to need a GeForce GTX 1080 or an RX Vega 64. And once again, you will need those 17 gigs of available hard drive space. So what does this really mean to us? What it means is that folks like me with a 970 or Chris on VR Roundtable who has a 980, and it's a regular 980, not a TI, we might have some trouble with this game. And so that's going to be interesting to see. I know that I've said on numerous occasions, more so on the VR Roundtable podcast and the VR Roundtable YouTube show, I've said repeatedly that December 12th is my deadline to basically buy a new video card, and that I was going to finally make an upgrade on December 12th, and that is for the arrival of Fallout 4 VR. And I still plan on doing this, but you know, I just don't know exactly how fast all of that's going to happen. But with Doom coming out this Friday, I don't know that I'm going to immediately run out and try to grab a video card. Now, I'm going to start really looking for one, but I don't know that I'm going to have a gun held to my head and force myself to run out and get a video card. Probably not by this Friday, I can tell you that. So I'm going to have to try this with my 970 and just hope for the best. So that will be interesting. And I'll also try to get Chris's thoughts on how it's working out for him this Friday when he tries to play Doom VFR with his 980. My hope is sometimes with a lot of these situations, you will have some of these developers and publishers where they will go a little bit higher on these minimum and recommended specs, but you can kind of get in there a little bit lower and you can kind of turn a bunch of settings down. You might have to deal with some stuttering here and some stuttering there, but you might still be able to play the game mostly fine. I can tell you that with Heart of the Emberstone, a lot of people talk about how Heart of the Emberstone is kind of a power hog and that you need to have higher end graphics cards and stuff to be able to run Heart of the Emberstone. I have a 970 and for the most part I didn't have too many problems. Now every once in a while it would get judder and it would have some issues there for a little while and it would be irritating, but it didn't last very long and I was able to play through the entire game of Heart of the Emberstone on my 970, so that worked out okay. And I also remember Soulkeeper VR. Soulkeeper VR, of all the VR games I can remember, had some of the highest specifications, minimum and recommended specifications that there were. And I was able to turn a lot of things down and be able to kind of play that. Now, that game's pretty crappy. You don't really want to play it anyway, but I was able to actually kind of experience the game per se without too much trouble. So I'm hoping it'll be the same way with Doom VFR. But, we're going to have to see. This is going to be interesting because when we first started down this VR road, the 970 was the base level situation. And you got to remember with Oculus has this asynchronous space warp. And with that, they were able to actually lower their specifications to like a 960 or something like that. So unfortunately, this is not an Oculus native game, and it's not going to run in the Oculus SDK. So I do not believe you're going to get any kind of a space warp situation here. So there will be no help from that standpoint. But we are jumping up to a new era, and it's starting to look like the 1070 is kind of the base level now instead of the 970. So, it is later. We've moved on. April 2016 is a long time ago now. So we are at a new era, and it's going to be time for a lot of us, especially people like me that have been holding out for an incredibly long time. It's going to be time to grab ourselves a new video card, and these kind of recommendations just let us know that this is the reality. So we'll have to see how that works out. Now, we have some more Doom VFR news just when you thought that we couldn't talk about Doom VFR any more than we've already had. We've got another Doom VFR story, and this one is IGN. This is a better story, okay? IGN has learned that Doom VFR is going to feature 2 bonus levels that are taken from the original id Classic back from 1993, the original Doom. We are going to get bonus levels, the Toxic Refinery level and the Nuclear Plant level. And the way this is going to work is both of these levels are going to basically have an identical layout to the original level, and item placements will be in the identical locations that they were in the original Doom. The only difference is instead of 2-dimensional bit-mapped enemies that are going to be pixelated and chunky, you're going to get Doom VFR enemies that are going to be substituted in place of those other enemies. So that's really going to be the only difference. Now, this is exciting. I really like this. I've said this a million times. I do not know what is going on at Bethesda, what is going on at id Software, what is going on at ZeniMax from the standpoint that they have all these classic retro properties that could be redone in VR and would be extremely interesting in VR. I've said it a million times. There's a lot of retro gamers out there that could get really interested in VR if virtual reality started to consider this and started to appeal to some of these people. Before I became really hyped on VR, I was actually a retro gamer. I got bored of modern gaming. I had an Xbox One, I had a PlayStation 4, and I was bored to tears. I'm always looking for something new that takes it to a new level. I was hoping for incredible graphics. I always want to jump on that next bandwagon, and I actually got completely completely bored of modern gaming, and I ended up going back to playing Super Nintendo and playing retro games and stuff. I wasn't even playing modern stuff. Then VR came along, and when I first saw VR, I was like, yes, finally something to step it up, something to take us to a new level, and I jumped on the VR bandwagon. And so I'm not a retro gamer anymore. I'm just playing VR. It's really all I play now. But I've always thought that Bethesda has these great properties. Well, really, id Software has these great properties: Doom, Quake, all these games, Castle Wolfenstein. These games could be redone in VR and, you know, update the graphics, update them. You don't have to like completely rework the game, but just make it a much more pleasant experience, and they can make a lot of money. I mean, look at Doom 3 BFG with the VR mod. Doom 3 BFG is $19.99, and a lot of people are buying this, and they're adding the VR mod to be able to play Doom 3 in VR. But the question, you know, the question comes out there, why doesn't Bethesda, why doesn't id, ZeniMax, why don't they officially do this and bake in the mod and fix it up a little bit? They're on the inside, they know exactly what they need to do, and they could just sell it. It could be on Steam as a VR version. It could, well, I guess it wouldn't be on Oculus considering they have this lawsuit and everything, so there is that. But they could offer an official version, because I know there's a lot of people out there that still haven't picked up Doom 3 BFG, because the idea of doing a mod, like they don't want to go to GitHub and download some file and put it into this folder, even though it's simple as pie. I mean, it's incredibly simple. But some people, they start reading stuff like that and they're like, the hell with it. If it isn't just on Steam where I can just download it and just play it, the hell with it. There's a lot of people that are like that, surprisingly. And I think Bethesda, id Software, ZeniMax, I think they're leaving some money on the table here. Now, one of the possibilities is that they are going to mine all of this stuff, and they're just waiting for VR to get a little bit bigger before they do that. That could be a possibility, so maybe we'll see that. But the good news is, having these two classic levels, my hope is that everybody out there is going to play these two classic levels, and they're going to rant and rave about it and say, oh man, I wish the entire Doom game was redone, or, you know, Doom 2 or Hexen or all these other games that kind of use that same kind of game engine, and Quake and stuff like that. I hope all of that gets them fired up, and then maybe they can come out with some official versions. That would be truly awesome. Okay, so besides the Doom VFR, I really only have one other major story today, and that is HDMI 2.1. Okay, so the HDMI forum has officially released the next version of the HDMI standard, HDMI 2.1. Now, this was originally announced way back at CES, but it has been completely finalized. And so the specifications, everything has been finalized. It has been locked in. It is ready to go. They know exactly what the specifications are, and companies can start to integrate this new standard into their products. Now, it's going to take time. We're not going to see any products the rest of this year that are going to have HDMI 2.1. We're probably not going to see any products in the first half of 2018 that are going to feature HDMI 2.1. But as we get into the second half of 2018, we will start to see some more HDMI 2.1 products. Now, what does this have to do with VR? Well, first of all, this new standard is going to support 8K video up to 60 hertz. Okay, now the good news for that is you would have to assume it will support 4K video at 60 hertz, two versions of it for the left and right eye, which is what we're interested in when it comes to VR. It also has support for up to 10K resolution, even though there isn't anything that is actually 10K right now. But I think the 10K resolution is at 30 hertz. So we still got a ways to go before we're going to get 10K at 60 hertz. And then we got a real long ways to go before we're going to be able to do both eyes at 10K at 60 hertz or 8K at 60 hertz, both eyes. But the reason I think this is important is because everybody that's grabbing these Pimax headsets, if you're going for the high-end Pimax that does actual native 4K or whatever it does, you're going to, I believe you have to use two like display ports to make it work. So you're going to have two cables that are going to be running out of your headset, two cables going to the back of your computer to the GPU, DisplayPort cables. We don't have an HDMI that can support this yet. So we do need this new HDMI standard. And the good news about this coming sometime next year is that Sony, when they have their next PlayStation VR system, it should be HDMI 2.1 right from the jump street. You would have to imagine PlayStation 5 will have HDMI 2.1. You also kind of have to imagine that Oculus, if they're going to have a new revision to their headset, they might as well feature HDMI 2.1 at this point. And so will HTC Vive and anybody else that is going to be releasing a higher end headset later next year. Now, Pimax, they've already done a Kickstarter and they've already promised these headsets. So they're going to have to start off initially just doing the DisplayPort thing. It's going to take them some time before they're going to be able to include HDMI 2.1. And long term, like if you do end up with a PlayStation VR 2, you're going to need a receiver that does HDMI. That's the thing about all this stuff is once you go to a new standard, everything in the chain needs to upgrade. You know, so you'll need a new receiver that does HDMI 2.1, and it just goes into that situation. I used to be into high-end home theater type stuff, and it's always like this. Anytime there's a new standard, it's like all your equipment basically becomes junk. You got to throw it out and you got to start over from scratch. Okay, so those are the only news stories I have. I did want to get into a little bit of game discussion. You know what? I actually have a major news story. I have to imagine that a lot of you that listen to this program, that are subscribed to this daily vlog, and you check this out on a regular basis, I have to imagine a pretty good number of you guys watch the VR Roundtable podcast. And if you've seen the last two episodes, I've talked about Skyrim VR in the last two episodes, and I've had a lot of complaints and a lot of issues. Like, as much as I love playing Skyrim and being in there and just being blown away by the majesty of the whole thing, you know, just walking around a bend and the sunlight is coming down and the music is playing some stirring music, and you see this city down there and you're starting to get closer and closer to it, and you see deer that are running around and stuff, or chickens in the road, and you see villagers walking around, and it all looks so amazing. You know, I was so blown away by that, but I kept having these horrible problems with my Move controllers where, you know, I'm playing the game. I've already talked about this on VR Roundtable, but I'll just give you guys a quick rundown of what was happening. You're playing the game. I'm standing in front of my camera. You know, my Move controllers are right here. Everything is great. I'm playing it. Everything is working well. And then at some point during the game, my hands in the game, like my sword and stuff, they're over here. They're not here. They're over here, and it gets all screwy. It's completely jacked up. And then the other problem that I was having is, even when things were good, even when my hands were facing the front area, what would happen is anytime I went into the menus and I was trying to like navigate the menus with these Move controllers to look into my inventory or drop a certain weapon that's too heavy because I'm over encumbered, it was a nightmare. The moves weren't working. They weren't doing anything. It was a complete disaster. And I actually thought that this was, I didn't know what this was because I haven't had problems with PSVR. My PSVR experience has been great. I've always heard of people like Jeff Gersman that have said, you know, PSVR is broken, you know, and they make these snap judgments. And we kind of talked about this on the latest VR Roundtable episode, how a lot of people in the mainstream media, they make these snap judgments about PSVR and they kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to that. I was completely the opposite. I always had great experiences with PSVR, and I thought for one camera, they did a magical job. Well, guess what, guys? I figured out what my problem is. Let me show you guys what my problem is. Hold on one sec. Okay, do you see this? This is my problem. Okay, so what happened? Hold on, I'm going to set this down. Okay, so what I discovered was I kept having these problems. I played Skyrim just the other day, and I had the problems again, and I'm like, man, what is going on here? This just isn't fair. Oh, woe is me. Why is this happening to little old me? But what I did is I thought, wait a minute, let me look around my environment and see, is there something that's causing this? And right behind me is this big giant ass picture that is incredibly reflective, because it has this like glass covering over it, and it is about as reflective gets. And the thing is, I've been playing my PlayStation VR in this living room for quite some time, and I simply didn't notice that my wife had put up this big giant ass portrait that has all this glass and it's incredibly reflective. And I thought, this is after I wasn't playing Skyrim at this time. It wasn't turned on or anything. I saw this when everything was turned off, and I saw this picture frame that was there, and I was like, oh my God, that could be it. That could be my problem. Maybe I solved my Skyrim issues. And so I took this thing down yesterday. I tried it out, and it works, man. I am so incredibly happy. I can even go in the menus and navigate the menus like you're supposed to be able to navigate the menus. So next time when I'm on the next episode of VR Roundtable, I have to talk about this. I have to apologize really to Bethesda. I mean, I put out some bad juju really when talking about all these complaints that I had. It was my experience though, and I didn't realize it. Because I had played PSVR in that living room so many times. I played Super Hot there, Stifled, all kinds of, Megaton, Rainfall, whatever recent PSVR games I've played, that's where I played it, and it all worked good. But my wife recently put this picture frame up when I had no idea about it, and I just didn't notice it. And I finally noticed it, and so this is my Skyrim problems. So I was playing yesterday, and I didn't get this problem where my arms are over there. It worked great the whole time. I'm able to navigate it. It's almost like it's a freaking new game for me. So I'm so happy. I'm so grateful that I figured this out. And my wife is like, why is the picture frame down? What's going on here? And I'm like, look, I'm playing Skyrim, all right? So the only thing is every time now I have to remember to take this thing down when I'm playing Skyrim, or I might need to just move my PSVR into another room. And I kind of liked having it in the living room, because then it would allow me to kind of be over there, and then maybe my kids want to play it, or maybe somebody else wants to play it. So I kind of liked being in the living room and doing it like that. But oh well, I don't know what I'm going to have to do, but I figured out the problem. That is absolutely wonderful. Okay, so we're around the 22-minute mark. I'll just talk about one more quick thing before we bounce out of here. And I did try the Project Cars 2 demo. There is a demo on Steam for Project Cars 2. I was able to try that out. And the interesting thing about it is I have a 970. We talked about the 970 thing, right? And I thought I was going to have serious problems trying to run Project Cars 2. It actually ran absolutely fine. Now, I'm sure all the settings were really low, but everything ran great. I didn't have any problems running the game. Now, the demo, they don't give you a hell of a lot. You get 3 cars that you can try out, and it's basically, I think, one track. I think it's just the same track with 3 different cars, and you can race them around. One of the cars is a Ferrari. See, I have this dream of a Ferrari 458 Spider. Like, I don't know if I'm going to hit the lottery, or if somebody, like, I'm going to be somewhere and some rich person's going to drive by and they're going to say, you know what? I just want to give you this Ferrari. But somehow a Ferrari 458 Spider is coming into my life, and I want to try it in VR. And so I was hoping this demo, I mean, I knew it probably wasn't going to have a Ferrari, and if it did, it wasn't going to be a 458 Spider. And I was right. It did have a Ferrari, but it was not a Ferrari 458 Spider. It was actually one of those, it's more like a race car Ferrari. So like the steering wheel is like a race car steering wheel. It's not like a car that you would be able to drive on a regular public street. But I was able to enjoy the demo and try the demo out. And honestly, my impressions of it, I was kind of surprised actually, because I thought whenever I think of Project Cars 2 on the computer, I think, oh my God, the graphics are going to blow away stuff like maybe Drive Club on PSVR or Gran Turismo Sport on PSVR. You know, the graphics would just blow it away. Now, it might be because I have a 970 and all of the settings are dramatically lowered because it recognizes the 970 and lowers all the settings. I'm not doing any kind of crazy super sampling or anything. But the graphics were not that incredible. I was not that blown away what I saw graphically. And the interior of the cars, I actually think Gran Turismo Sport might do a better job with the interior of the cars. I played the demo for I don't know how long, and then I actually got a bit of motion sickness. So after it was all over, like I was fine when I was playing the game, but when it was all over with, I kind of had a mild headache. And that does happen to me quite a bit with driving games for whatever reason. I don't know why it is. Like I kind of need to get used to a driving game and kind of build up a tolerance, and then I no longer get these kinds of headaches or anything when I play. But I did have a little bit of that. Honestly, was not that blown away by the Project Cars 2 demo, but it is cool that they have a demo out there. I mean, that's definitely a cool thing that they actually have a demo, so you might want to check that demo out if you get a chance. But anyway, guys, we've hit around the 25-minute mark, so I'm going to go ahead and call this, what are we on now? Is this episode 42? Episode 42 of the Daily Vlog. Once again, it is Wednesday, November 29th. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. I'm going to go play some Skyrim today, and I'm not going to have any problems. That's going to be so awesome. And I will see you guys tomorrow. So take it easy. Have a good one.